Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and once again, we're going to be talking about Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers, and this is going to be less about sourcing and an update, and this is going to be more about what this channel ultimately, I would believe, is its bread and butter, and that is the analysis, the humble opinion. So I'm going to be giving you my thoughts, okay, because I gave you my thoughts a little bit in the sourcing, the news, all of that, but I really want to tell you and be honest, because I really am so pro Stafford, but I'm also not one of those people that won't give Aaron Rodgers a fair deal. So before we dive into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Be sure to follow me on all social media, including Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Kick at JKBogan. In addition to that, just want to let you guys know that today's sponsor is BetUS, and you can actually bet on all this stuff. So if you think, Matthew Stafford is going back to the freaking Detroit Lions, or you think he's going to the Vikings, or you do believe he's going to the Raiders, you can bet on that. You can bet on pretty much anything over at BetUS. Using the code YouTube150 will get you 150% bonus match on your first deposit and 125% on your following two deposits. So be sure to check that out. All right, let's get into it. No holds barred here. I'm taking off the gloves. I'm going to give you my thoughts. One, I think the Rams are penny pinching Matthew Stafford, and I don't like it. Okay? I don't. Matthew Stafford, I don't believe is trying to, not that I don't believe. Okay, so maybe there'll be some sourcing here. Matthew Stafford is not trying to reset the market. He's not trying to get $60 million like Dak Prescott. He wouldn't turn down $60 million. He's aware of how this league works. He's been a quarterback in this league since 2009. Okay, so he is very well aware that if he takes X amount of dollars, it takes away from what they can pay other guys around him. But you have to also understand this. Matthew Stafford has only missed one game when you take away the 2022 season when he had 17 different offensive line combinations. Aaron Donald didn't even get through that season. Cooper Kupp didn't get through that season. And really the only guys that played every single game during that 2022 season were traded away, except for Tyler Higbee and Rob Havenstein. Allen Robinson, gone. Bobby Wagner, gone. Jalen Ramsey, gone. Leonard Floyd, gone. I mean, think about that, right? So aside from that, Matthew Stafford's only missed one game in his Rams career. This is a guy that's always hurt, right? Well, he plays injured. He plays through, injured ribs. Remember I told you guys he's not washed. He's not falling off those last 3 games of the year before he had the off game against the Seahawks and was able to go and do his thing in the postseason. Remember I said his ribs are banged up? Well, then Kelly Stafford confirmed on her podcast after the fact, yeah, that's Matthew Stafford. He puts his body on the line. He had a spinal cord contusion. And everyone was saying, oh, he's going to retire. He should retire, all this. No, he never once thought about retirement. He only thought about coming back stronger. This is what you get. In addition to that, people that I've talked to, him around the locker room, he is a special guy in the locker room. He is a special leader. This isn't somebody that you just throw away and you recycle. Okay, this is somebody that you really try to find, and if you can't find him, then you got to hope that someday they just fall into your lap, because it's not very likely. There's a reason why Matthew Stafford, despite the fact he was drafted in 2009, is still around. He still looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And by the way, because let's be honest here, you're not paying him what you're paying him to win regular season games. You're paying him to get you to the playoffs and then do his thing when he gets to the playoffs. Because we already know he outplayed Jalen Hurts. He outplayed Jared Goff. He outplayed Tom Brady. He outplayed Jimmy Garoppolo. He outplayed Kyler Murray. He outplayed Joe Burrow. Since Matthew Stafford has come to the Rams, every single playoff game, he's 5-2, and in those playoff games, he's outplayed every quarterback. He should be 7-0. The 2 games he lost, the one against Jalen Hurts, where he outplayed Hurts by a country mile, was 14 yards away, missed block, and he would have had a touchdown. In addition to that, the Lions game, awful no call on Puka Nacua. Regardless, they lose by 1 point on the road. Very good Lions team that ends up going and win 15 games the following season. So that's what we're talking about. This guy gives you a chance to win. And he always was. He was always giving you a chance to win. He was giving the Lions a chance to win. He had 4 freaking touchdowns in his first ever playoff game with the Lions. His defense gave up over 40 points to the Drew Brees, Sean Payton, really, really good New Orleans Saints team. That's just what happened. So what am I saying here? Well, Matthew Staffords don't grow on trees. So let's start off by saying I think the Rams are doing something here. And I mean, I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm just calling it like it is. I believe that when the Rams won the Super Bowl with Kurt Warner, I think, first off, I think Dick Vermeil was pushed out. We'll never know for sure, but I think he was pushed out because he goes from retiring to then coaching right away with the Kansas City Chiefs. So he was pushed out because Mike Martz was the big, like really big head coaching prospect. And, you know, he forces their hand because he says he's going to leave and go be a head coach. And so you didn't want to lose him because the greatest show on turf and all that, when it turns out he's not that great of a head coach. Not saying he was horrible, but obviously wasn't on the level of a Dick Vermeil. He wasn't the leader Dick Vermeil was, and he didn't keep the locker room together like Dick Vermeil. So what did Martz do? Well, Martz moved off Kurt Warner, the guy who won the Super Bowl, because he had the assumption that he could do it all over again with Mark Bulger. Bulger won playoff games, okay? Bulger went to the playoffs. He played decently well, but was Bulger Kurt Warner? No. Kurt Warner, of course, ends up going to the New York Giants. He plays pretty well. They bench him for Eli Manning. I don't believe the Giants win another game. And then he goes to Arizona Cardinals, and not long after that, they're in the Super Bowl. I'm just saying. So I think it's happening again. I think there's this kind of assumption. I'm not saying any names. I will say I don't believe it's entirely McVay, but maybe. But I think it's happening again where, you know, egos are prevailing here. And I think there's this assumption that the Rams can go and win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers or win a Super Bowl with whoever. To me, Aaron Rodgers is the only option if you move off Matthew Stafford and you still want to go and win a Super Bowl, because Sam Darnold, we saw him in the playoffs. He's not going to get it done. Justin Fields doesn't have that experience. Russell Wilson, we saw him in the playoffs. He's not great anymore. He's a good quarterback. I don't necessarily think he'd be a great option. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, those are all fun options to develop as backups and maybe start down the road. But if you're looking for a win now option, it's either Matthew Stafford, who you already have on your roster, you just need to pay, or Aaron Rodgers. It's that simple. There's never been a rookie quarterback, to go and win a Super Bowl. I don't believe that any of these guys are going to do better than what Jaden Daniels did. So with that said, since those are the only two options, Kirk Cousins isn't going to be available. The Falcons are keeping him. Plus, you don't want to have to trade for that contract. Jimmy Garoppolo, I think he'll be back with the Rams as the backup, but God forbid, that guy is not who I want, carrying this team if you're trying to win now, as much as I like him. I like him as a backup. So with that said, Matthew Stafford gives you the best chance, and I think Aaron Rodgers gives you the second best chance. And if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, Matthew Stafford is definitely the favorite there. And you look what the Rams have. That defense, the way they're playing, I do think that the Rams are looking at this thing like, we could pay Stafford $45 to $50 million, or we could get Aaron Rodgers. We could trade Stafford away, get draft capital for our, organization that has drafted better than anybody the last two drafts, and, sure up that second round, get another second round pick that we traded away for Braden Fisk. And now that you have that taken care of, you can go and get Aaron Rodgers on the cheap, because he's already going to be making, $40 million? Because it's basically a buyout because the Jets cut him and now they owe him all that money. Very similar to Russell Wilson when he took $89 million from the Broncos, basically saying, hey, we'll give you $89 million, just don't play for us. And he went over and signed a $1 million 1-year deal with the Steelers. I'm not saying Rodgers will do that. I think it'll be more like 5 to 10 and probably leaning towards the 5 number. But the point is, he's going to be cheap. And also, Rodgers almost guarantees that Davante Adams comes over. And say what you will about Davante Adams, and I don't want him if it's Stafford. If Stafford's back, I wouldn't want Davante Adams. But that rapport with Aaron Rodgers, you can't deny it. Another 1,000-yard season for Davante Adams. The guys are always on the right page. You have him, you have Puka Nacua, you have Jordan Whittington, you have Tyler Higbee, whoever else you bring in. I do like that. Kyron Williams. So, that's my thought there, is that I think this is ego driven. This is We can save money by not paying Stafford. Whether they should or not is kind of, it's like, okay, maybe he'll agree, maybe he won't, but we can pivot to Aaron Rodgers. We can do it with Aaron Rodgers. It would make us look better. Just like with Mike Martz, it'd make him look better if he can win a Super Bowl with Mark Bulger and not just win another one with Kurt Warner. What would be more impressive, winning it with the same guy or finding a way to win it with another guy? And so I'm not saying that the Rams are entirely that team. I'm not saying that's all they do, but I think in this instance, that is the only way that you let Matthew Stafford go, because I'll tell you right now, when you see Tom Brady wanting to go out and get this guy, and you see these teams that are interested in him, and you see people saying, how the hell is he available? That should tell you that he probably shouldn't be available. And if you're concerned about his long-term, don't give him a long-term deal. You don't need to give him a 4-year deal. This would be a 2-year deal. This would be a 2-year deal, maybe 120 million tops. I mean, it's not going to be that much, and his cap hit is already high, right? So I understand maybe you don't want to give him all that guaranteed money, but he's getting up there in age. Rodgers won the MVP at 37 and 38 years old. So, look, you could say, Stafford only had 20 passing touchdowns. Yeah, because Kyron Williams has 30 the last 2 years alone. We know what Stafford can do. And by the way, with a fully healthy offensive line, which he's only ever had once, he had 41 touchdowns and they won the Super Bowl. When things were perfect, Stafford won the Super Bowl. When things were absolutely abysmal, okay, they didn't make the playoffs and Stafford didn't even get past the season. But when things were not great and you had to come from behind, a 3-6 team, a 1-4 team, Stafford brought both teams to the playoffs, and you can't tell me otherwise. So I think the Rams really need to look at this. They need to understand that this isn't as simple as just playing Madden and, wheeling and dealing and just putting Rodgers there. With that said, because I'm against that aspect of it, but another aspect I'm against is this idea that, Aaron Rodgers is washed. Aaron Rodgers is bad. Aaron Rodgers wouldn't work out. They'd go 6-11 or 7-10. I disagree. I think the thing is, Rodgers can probably match Stafford in this offense, because I think Sean McVay could really help Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was doing some really good things at the end of last year in a not so good offense. The offensive line constantly was, giving up pressure. He had wide receivers. He'd have wide receivers on the Rams. I mean, instead of Garrett Wilson, it's Puka Nacua, right? So, say what you will. I think Rodgers fits well. I do. But the thing here, for me, is that it's what Stafford brings to the table. You lost Aaron Donald. When Aaron Donald retired, somebody had to fill that void. And I feel like Rodgers, Stafford day one was like that guy. He came in and he's like, I'm going to pick up my team. I'm going to put him on my back. And that team was already talented. And I just think Stafford is the leader. And Rodgers, while I think he's an underrated leader, he's underappreciated. I think his character has been assassinated. And part of it's his own doing, saying what he has, and he's controversial, and I get that. But I think it's also overblown. But he's not, regardless if it's overblown or not, I don't think he is Matthew Stafford. I don't think he is the leader Stafford is, and I don't think he's as good as Stafford right now. So this isn't like, could they win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers? I'm here to tell you they absolutely could. Hell, they could win a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. They could win it with Goff. What do I keep telling you? I keep saying you can win a Super Bowl with any quarterback, but the margin for error becomes slimmer the lesser talent you work with. It's that simple. You don't think Sean McVay could win a Super Bowl with Garoppolo? He absolutely could. The defense would just have to play out of their minds, and Garoppolo would have to play mistake-free football for the majority of the season. And he'd have to overcome that big game kind of freeze that he has done in the past. But could they win a Super Bowl? One game, you get there, Garoppolo could outplay the guy on the other sideline. It's absolutely possible. But is there anybody I would take over Matthew Stafford? No. I wouldn't take Patrick Mahomes in one game. I wouldn't take Jalen Hurts. I wouldn't take Josh Allen. I love Josh Allen. But I know Matthew Stafford, has gotten it done on the big stage before. Patrick Mahomes has, but Patrick Mahomes also has 2 games in which he really just got dominated. You could say the offensive line all you want, but I watched Matthew Stafford throwing to a third-string tight end. I watched him working with no run game to speak of in the Super Bowl. I watched him working with Ben Skoranek as his third receiver. Mid-game, Odell Beckham Jr. goes down. What do? Now the Bengals are double-teaming Cooper Kupp, and you have an injured Van Jefferson who's playing in the Super Bowl. I watched that. We all did. So it's significant to move on from a player like this. And to be fair, Rodgers hasn't done it. He hasn't gotten back there. He's had a lot of really good teams, and he has not gotten back to the promised land since they beat the Steelers early on in his career. Could he do it again? Yeah, with McVay, absolutely. But careful what you wish for. It's one of those things where you're like, yeah, we can cut costs here and cut costs here. Okay, you do that with Cooper Kupp. You do that with Jonah Jackson. You do that with whatever, right? That's fine. But when you start to penny pinch at quarterback, an organization that has struggled to find their guy, keep that in mind. You had Kurt Warner, you had Mark Bulger, you had Sam Bradford. You traded Sam Bradford, and instead of just getting a first-round pick, Les Snead had to get Nick Foles, so you relinquish the first-round pick, and you go and you accept a second-round pick in Nick Foles. Foles does not do well. They draft, Jared Goff in 2016. Goff does well in 2017 and 18. Starts to fall off in 2019, really falls off in 2020. You trade for Matthew Stafford. I've seen this team. I've seen how many quarterbacks they've started from guys like Keith Noll, Kyle Bowler, like I said, Bradford, Austin Davis, Jamie Martin. I mean, they've started so many quarterbacks in the past, obviously some of which, were just filling in. But this team has gone through its peaks and its very, very large valleys. And so for me, I am not trying to do that when you found your guy. Stafford is your guy. Rodgers could be your guy, but Rodgers isn't going to play more than one season. I think, make no mistake about it, they are win now, Stafford or not. And I think with them being win now with Stafford, you got maybe 2 to 3 years. Consistency, continuity, leadership, all of that. If you get Rodgers, this is a 1-year rental, I think. 1-year rental with him and Adams. It gets you to bridge onto, while you're trying to go for it, you're also bridging onto 2026. And keep this in mind. If you're going for the gold, if you're going for it all, you're not going to have a really good first-round draft pick. It's going to be hard to trade up and get your guy in 2026. And what I've been told is that the Rams want to draft their quarterback in 2026. That's going to be hard to do if you're picking 32nd or 31st. So I don't know what this looks like. I don't ultimately know what they want to do. This is just based on what I've heard, and this is ultimately how I feel. Matthew Stafford gives you the best chance to win a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers could, but there's a question mark. With Stafford, I don't have question marks. With Stafford, I feel like it's guaranteed. I feel like if Stafford comes back, the Rams will win this Super Bowl. And if Rodgers is the quarterback, I think the Rams can win the Super Bowl. But you see how I go from feeling like yes to feeling like, yeah, maybe? That's what we're talking about. That's the difference between an Aaron Rodgers and a Matthew Stafford at this point. 37-year-old, Matthew Stafford, 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Anybody other than those two, they're not serious about winning a Super Bowl. Sam Darnold isn't going to get it done. You can say what you will. He looked really good during the regular season. Those 2 games, you could say the offensive line was bad. Cam Robinson was abysmal, gave up 21 pressures in 2 games, sure. But Sam Darnold also held on to the ball way too long, did not get rid of the ball. That was an issue. Justin Fields has never been in that situation before. I don't necessarily think he could do it. To me, it's either one or the other, and you know what you have in Stafford. Rodgers is more so, man, wouldn't this be cool if this happens? Well, what I would say is this. Try and mend the fences with Stafford. If you can't do it, Rodgers sure seems like he just wants to be a Ram, and you feel good about that. But what I don't want to see is them trying to force Stafford out, them doing exactly what this organization did, forcing Kurt Warner out and just trying to pull an ego card where it's like, you know what, Stafford, we're not going to pay you, and we can actually win with Aaron Rodgers because we know we can do this and we know we don't need you. I don't want to see that. I want to see this end. If it's going to end, I want to see it end on good terms. I want Stafford to be, sent to the location he wants to go to. I don't want to see any hardball stuff. But I just have to say, I think this is a mistake. If they do move on from Stafford, I just don't think it's a mistake that could ultimately kill them. But I will say 2026 it could, because you could say what you will. Say Rodgers does wonders this year. Maybe they don't win the Super Bowl, but Rodgers goes off, has a great year. Now he wants a lot of money. You think the Rams are just going to give him all that money in 2026? No, they move on to the young quarterback, and they go through kind of that, down year or whatever with the rookie quarterback, whereas Stafford is over in Vegas or wherever he is, and in 2026, they're playing for a Super Bowl. So I'm just saying, man, I don't love the way this offseason is going. I have to say I never once really reported or talked about the offseason because it was so quiet. Like, we didn't really hear a lot about, Stafford and the Rams. We just knew he wasn't holding out, wanted a new deal, all that. I greatly undersold what that was. That was significant. And I'm not going to undersell it this time. I've learned my lesson. This is real. And the prevailing theory is that Matthew Stafford is still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Many executives around the league believe that. Everyone saw the Eagles game. They saw that guy was going to go, and if they beat the Eagles, he was going to go win the Super Bowl again. But that didn't happen, and so right now the feeling is that he will not be a Ram. They will be trading him away, and Aaron Rodgers will come to LA, and we'll see how that goes. And we will definitely see if that's how it ends up being. But right now, I mean, it feels that way. It feels way more than likely that Stafford's gone and Rodgers is in. And I'm just saying, if it's one of those things where you just can't work out a deal, Stafford's asking for way too much or whatever, but I don't get that feeling. Just based on what I know, it doesn't feel like he's asking for the moon and the stars. He's not trying to reset the market. And also, so what if he is? I think he means way too much to your team. If this was the case, I think you got to bite the bullet and pay him. It's only 2 years. You paid Aaron Donald knowing that he was going to retire. $25 million in dead money last year. I mean, the Rams at some point or another have to stop getting burned by these signings and whatnot. But to me, the dead money with Jonah Jackson, the dead money here with Stafford that you'll be eating, I don't know. I'm irked by it. But those are my thoughts. Ultimately, I don't agree with the decision, but I also don't agree with the way people are acting like Aaron Rodgers is a complete schlep and can't play football. Go and watch his film. I'm telling you right now, he still has it, still has zip, can throw multiple speeds. He doesn't have the zip that Stafford has, but he's still a very good quarterback and can be top 10 with the right offensive line in front of him and with some weapons. And that's what I think the Rams provide. So, that's going to do it for me. Again, this is more of an opinion piece. If you want to get more details, I did drop them in the video. I believe it's very unlikely Matthew Stafford is back with the Rams. And we'll have plenty of videos. I'm back. I'm ready to go, man. If you saw the quote about Luka being unleashed, well, this is me after a vacation of no content, which I have not done since I started doing content. So expect a lot of videos, expect a lot of information. And I'm back. I love the draft, and we'll get into the draft. But right now, this takes priority and precedence, and I'm going to make sure that everybody is, filled in on what's going on, and you guys are very confident about where I stand on everything, and where I stand. That it's going to be that simple. So anyway, that's going to do it. Be sure to check out today's sponsor, BetUS. Again, YouTube 150 is the code, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, folks. Later. All right, guys. So once again, just want to let you guys know that you can check out my new side project, The Lounge. I interview athletes, musicians, actors, actresses, all the nine. So definitely check it out over on the Lounge with Jake Ellenbogen channel. Be sure to subscribe and enjoy. In case you guys haven't noticed, I do have a Discord channel for my community on this channel. And if you want to be a part of it, it is free. The link is in the description below. You can sign up. This is basically a 24/7 Rams channel, and we are almost at 1,100 members. So if you want to be a part of it, just hit the link in the description below.